Welcome to our peaceful sanctuary, where whispered stories will gently guide you to sleep. As night gradually falls and the worries of a long day begin to fade, let's take a deep breath together, relaxing both body and mind. Tonight, we will step into a magical world, where fairy tales, serene adventures, or simple slices of life will be told in the softest tones. Find yourself a comfortable spot, perhaps on your warm bed, by a window gazing at the starry sky, or anywhere you feel most at peace. Set aside all thoughts, all busyness, and let your soul be led by the narration. I am here to bring you tranquility, to help you drift into a deep sleep and dream the sweetest dreams. Get ready to listen, because our story is about to begin. The Whispers of the Beard, the Chronicle of a Tax Collector. Chapter 1. The Burden of a Decree. The Istanbul sky in the early 18th century always held a mystical beauty, a blend of ancient charm and bustling life. From the magnificent domes of Hagia Sophia to the winding, narrow alleys of the Grand Bazaar, every street corner told a story. But for Ismail, on a humid March morning, his own story was just beginning. Not with lyrical praises, but with a harsh decree, Ismail, 30 years old, a man of average build with deep brown eyes that often held a pensive look, had once thought his life would unfold peacefully. He was a petty clerk in a small administrative office, his main duties being record-keeping and sorting documents. His life was simple, providing enough to eat and wear, and Ismail was content with that stability. He had a small home with his gentle wife, Zeynep, and a bright, lively son, Ahmed. His greatest dream was simply for Ahmed to be able to read and write proficiently, not to live a life of arduous manual labor like so many around them. Then, one fateful day, a new decree was issued. Trumpets blared throughout the city, followed by a rapid drumbeat, signaling important news. The populace poured into the streets, whispering and speculating. Ismail joined the crowd, his heart filled with a silent worry. New decrees often came with taxes, and life for the poor was already difficult enough. But this decree was so strange that it was almost unbelievable. It didn't tax land nor luxury goods, but instead it taxed beards. Ismail stood frozen, trying to process every word the high-ranking palace guard read aloud. By the will of His Great Majesty the Sultan, to consolidate the imperial treasury and strengthen the military, from this day forward, every male in the empire, aged 18 and above, with a beard longer than 1 inch, shall pay a tax. The tax rate shall depend on the beard's length, from 1 to 3 inches, 1 silver coin. Over 3 inches, 2 silver coins. Those with beards shorter than 1 inch shall be exempt from the tax. Whispers, then chuckles, rippled through the crowd. A few men touched their beards with an air of disbelief. Could this be a joke? Who would tax beards? But the palace guard's stern face, along with the solemn detachment of the soldiers standing behind him, dispelled all doubt. This was real, a strange and somewhat absurd reality. Before he could fully comprehend what was happening, Ismail was even more stunned when his name was called out. He was appointed to a new position, one that had never existed before: the beard tax collector. Ismail ibn Yusuf, you are entrusted with the duty of enforcing this decree. In the Fatih and Beyoğlu districts, you shall receive a ledger, a standard measuring stick, and a squad of guards for support. That night, Ismail couldn't sleep a wink. Zeynep sat beside him, nervously stroking her husband's dark hair. Ahmed, still too young to grasp the gravity of the situation, was fast asleep. "What will you do, Ismail?" Zeynep whispered, her voice filled with fear. "How can you go around demanding money from men for their beards? It's just absurd." Ismail sighed. "I don't know, Zeynep. This is the Sultan's order. If I refuse, we'll lose everything. Ahmed won't be able to go to the Imam's school. We'll have nothing to eat." He looked at the gleaming new metal measuring stick his superior had given him, cold and impersonal. This stick would be the link between him and hundreds, thousands of different beards. Each beard a story, a source of pride or a burden. He wondered how many people would mock him, how many would be enraged, and how many would look at him with hatred. Ismail knew that in the Ottoman Empire, a beard was not just facial hair. It was a symbol. For many, it was a sign of maturity, wisdom, and social standing. For the devout, it was adherence to the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, an expression of devotion to Allah. Shaving was forbidden for most pious Muslim men, except in special cases, and now the court was turning that sacred symbol into a source of tax revenue. It was an insult, a trampling upon tradition and faith. The next morning, Ismail donned his new uniform, heavy and restrictive. He felt as though he were wearing an invisible armor, but instead of protecting him, it made him a target for scrutinizing gazes. Carrying his ledger and measuring stick, he and 2 guards stepped out into the bustling streets of Istanbul, beginning his first journey as a beard tax collector. Chapter 2. The First Beards. The first street Ismail visited was a bustling commercial area in Fatih. The cries of vendors, the haggling, and the clatter of horse hooves created a chaotic symphony of urban life. The scent of spices, coffee, sweat, and even tobacco permeated the air, blending together to create a distinctive Istanbul aroma. Ismail felt his chest tighten. He cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. "Good morning, sir," he said to a middle-aged man sitting outside a carpet shop. The man looked up, his dark, thick, neatly trimmed beard exuding an air of dignity. "What is it, sir?" the man asked, his gaze scrutinizing. Ismail took a deep breath. "By the Sultan's decree, I am tasked with measuring your beard's length and collecting a tax if your beard is longer than 1 inch. The man was surprised. He touched his beard, then looked at Ismail with suspicion. "A beard tax? Are you joking? This is the poorest joke I've ever heard." A few passers-by stopped, curious. Whispers began to spread. "No, sir. This is true. I am only following orders." Ismail tried to keep his voice as calm as possible. The man frowned, annoyed. "Who are you to bother me? This beard has been with me for 40 years, a testament to my success and my piety. How dare you touch it with that filthy measuring stick?" Ismail felt a flush of heat run down his spine. He knew he was facing contempt. He bowed his head slightly. "I apologize if I have disturbed you, sir, but I am only doing my duty. The tax rate depends on the beard's length. Under 1 inch, exempt. From 1 to 3 inches, 1 silver coin. Over 3 inches, 2 silver coins." The man exhaled sharply, still annoyed. He jutted out his chin, reluctantly. "Fine. Go ahead and measure. My beard is long enough to pay tax for this entire city." Ismail carefully raised the measuring stick. The sensation of the metal touching the soft, warm beard hairs made him feel a little awkward. He measured 3.5 inches. 3.5 inches, sir," Ismail announced. "You will need to pay 2 silver coins." The man glared at Ismail, then gritted his teeth. He reluctantly pulled out 2 silver coins from his pouch and slammed them onto the table. "What a waste! You are truly a despicable exploiter. May the Sultan realize the absurdity of this decree before it destroys everything." Ismail bowed his head as he collected the money, noting it in his ledger. He knew this was just the beginning. He continued his work. There was a younger man, whose beard had just started growing, only about 1 inch long, but he still had to pay the tax. He grumbled but acquiesced. An old baker, with a beard as white as flax, tremblingly handed Ismail one silver coin. The old man's eyes were sad, as if he were offering a part of his soul. The first morning was a series of such encounters. Ismail faced every attitude, from open contempt to hidden anger, resignation, and even despair. Each beard told a story of its owner's status, life, and beliefs. As the sun rose higher, casting harsh rays onto the streets, Ismail felt utterly exhausted, not from the physical work, but from the mental burden. He wasn't an exploiter. He was just an enforcer. But their gazes, their words, all converged on him, on the metal stick in his hand. He felt as though he was being stabbed by 1,000 knives. His ledger was filled with names and amounts, but in his mind, it was also filled with faces, gazes, and sighs. "I have said that the joy," he said, "is inside." He wondered how many people had shaved their beards to avoid paying the tax. Would this decree truly benefit the empire, or was it merely sowing more discontent and division among the populace? Ismail knew his journey had only just begun, and he would have to face many more beards, many more stories. Chapter 3. Hidden Sorrows. Instead, there were more and more clean-shaven faces, or beards trimmed so short they were barely recognizable. Men who had once been proud of their beards now tried to hide them, or even shaved them completely. Ismail recalled the words of Imam Yusuf, the old cleric with a snow-white beard he had met one morning. Imam Yusuf had said that a beard was a part of faith, an adherence to the Prophet's sunnah. To tax it was like selling a part of one's soul. And now, Ismail was witnessing it firsthand. He met Kemal, a young shoemaker. Kemal had a thick, dark beard, meticulously groomed like a work of art. He had always been proud of his beard, saying it brought good luck to his work. But when Ismail came to collect the tax, Kemal just sadly shook his head. "I'm sorry, Ismail," Kemal said, his voice hoarse. "I don't have enough money. Business is slow. My wife and children are hungry. I had to shave it." Ismail looked at Kemal's clean-shaven face where his proud beard once resided. His heart ached. "Why? You didn't have to do that. You could have paid in installments or—" "No," Kemal interrupted, his eyes vacant. "I couldn't let my family starve for a few hairs on my face, but I feel like I've lost a part of myself, like a tree having its roots chopped off." Ismail was speechless. He could only write in his ledger that Kemal was exempt from the tax because he no longer had a beard. But in his heart, he knew Kemal had paid a much higher price than any silver coin. There were those who resisted more silently. One afternoon, Ismail visited an old bookseller named Ahmed Pasha. The old man, whose beard was silvery white and reached his waist, was engrossed in an old book under the dim oil lamp. "Good day, Ahmed Pasha," Ismail greeted. "I have come to collect the beard tax." Ahmed Pasha looked up, his clouded eyes meeting Ismail's. He said nothing, simply slowly placed the book down. Aim began to stroke his beard. Ismail felt a strange solemnity in his actions. "Your beard is very long, sir. I measure almost 8 inches. Ismail said, his voice trembling slightly. Ahmed Pasha nodded. "It has been with me my whole life, Ismail. It has witnessed me read thousands of books and soaked up ink from ancient manuscripts. It is a part of me, my companion on the path to knowledge." The old man looked at Ismail, his eyes filled with melancholy. "You see, Ismail, a beard is not just a beard. It is the story of a man's life. It is pride, a connection to the past, to ancestors. Now the Sultan's decree forces us to pay for our very existence. Ahmed Pasha reluctantly pulled out 2 silver coins, but there was no anger in his eyes, only a deep sadness, as if he were witnessing something sacred being defiled. "Do you know," Ahmed Pasha said, his voice soft as a whisper, "some people have started using special concoctions to make their beards grow slower, or even not at all. They would rather endure the pain, the discomfort, than pay for themselves." Ismail was startled. He had never thought of that. Could despair drive people to such unexpected actions? He left the old bookstore with a heavy heart. His ledger was still filling up day by day, but the numbers no longer held any meaning for him. What mattered to him were the hidden stories behind each beard, each face, each sigh. He began to see a larger picture of simmering discontent among the populace. An undertow was forming, and Ismail wondered if it would erupt into a storm. Chapter 4: The Feast and the Furnace. The dominant sounds were the crackling of fire, the rotating skewers, and the ragged breaths of the children. He was led down a narrow, dark tunnel, dimly lit by the flickering firelight from the colossal roasting ovens. The air here was thick with heat, suffocating and smoky. Inside the tunnel, a heartbreaking scene met his eyes. Dozens of boys, aged 8 to 12, thin and grimy-faced, sat on the hot ground, constantly turning large cranks connected to the meat skewers inside the ovens. The tunnel was half in sight, with dozens of boys, aged 8 to 12, constantly turning large cranks connected to the meat skewers inside. The sweat poured from them, their eyes glazed over from lack of sleep. A few boys were dozing off, but were immediately roused by a large, scowling overseer with a stick. The overseer, a man named Riza, seemed displeased by Ismail's presence. He looked at Ismail with suspicion. "What are you doing here? This is no place for fine gentlemen like you." Ismail tried to remain calm. "I am ordered to supervise the work here, to ensure everything runs smoothly for the Sultan's feast," Riza sneered. "Smoothly? Here? There's only sweat and tears. These brats, all they know is eating and sleeping. Keep turning. The meat must be cooked evenly. Tonight is the Sultan's grand feast." Ismail observed the children. He saw the exhaustion on their faces, their eyes devoid of innocence, replaced by weariness and resignation. He felt a pang of bitterness. He suddenly remembered his own son, Ahmed, sleeping soundly in Zeynep's arms, surrounded by warmth and safety. These children were also just Ahmed's age. He approached a thin boy, about 12 years old, named Hassan. Hassan was gritting his teeth, straining to turn the crank. Sweat drenched his ragged clothes. "Are you all right, Hassan?" Ismail asked softly. Hassan looked up, his eyes wide with surprise. No one had ever asked him that before. Hassan nodded. "Yes, sir. Very hot. I'm thirsty." "I can help you get water," Ismail said, then turned to Riza. "These children need to rest and drink water regularly. If they collapse from exhaustion, who will turn the meat for the Sultan's feast?" Riza looked at Ismail suspiciously, but Ismail's words made sense. If the children fell ill, he would be held responsible. "All right, but only a little, and only this once." Ismail found a water jug and handed it to Hassan. The boy drank in large gulps, his eyes brightening slightly. While Hassan drank, Ismail observed more closely. He saw the calluses on the boy's small hands, the blisters from touching the hot skewers. He saw the dried tears on another boy's cheek, perhaps from exhaustion and pain. He suddenly realized that these children were just like the beards he had to tax. They had no voice. They were dictated by decrees, by lavish feasts, by the needs of others. They were just tiny cogs in a giant machine, grinding away childhood and even souls. When Ismail left the furnace room, he felt a profound sadness enveloping him. He had witnessed the extreme luxury of the palace, where food was prepared with the sweat and tears of children, and he had also witnessed the destitution, the despair of the poor, who had to sacrifice their most sacred values to survive. He wondered if all that he was doing, all the silver coins he collected, were serving some absurdity. Was he contributing to the creation of a world where those in power lived in luxury while the poor endured hardship? Ismail returned home, his heart heavy. Zeynep was asleep. He looked at Ahmed, sleeping soundly. He gently stroked his son's hair, silently vowing that he would do everything to ensure Ahmed never had to endure the fate of the children in the furnace room, or the men who had to shave their beards. The burden on his shoulders was not just the responsibility of a tax collector. It was also the burden of conscience, of empathy, and of unspoken questions. And so, our journey for this evening comes to a close. I want to extend my sincerest thanks to all of you who have dedicated your precious time to listen and immerse yourselves in the stories we've just shared. Every view, every comment, every moment you've spent here has been a tremendous source of motivation, empowering me to continue bringing meaningful and engaging content. I hope these stories have brought you something, perhaps relaxation after a long day, a fresh idea, or simply a gentle smile. Now, as night falls, I wish you the most peaceful sleep. May this night bring you absolute tranquility, allowing your mind to rest and your body to recover energy, so you can wake up tomorrow with a refreshed spirit, full of positive energy. Our adventure is still very long, with countless wonderful and captivating stories awaiting. This channel is not just a place for storytelling, but also a space for us to explore, learn, and share together. To ensure you don't miss any exciting content in the future, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your companionship is the greatest motivation that helps me continue to create and grow. Once again, thank you all very much for always being here. I wish you a peaceful night, sweet dreams, and I look forward to seeing you in the next stories. Goodbye and sleep well, everyone.